Lynch came out today and said essentially, when Brock Purdy's healthy, he's the guy. So I asked for you. You weren't there. I asked for you. I said, okay, John, well, if Purdy's the guy and Lance needs to play, but he doesn't get that opportunity, are you going to trade him? And he goes, we like Lance on the team for now, which was such a weird thing to say. He said it like, no, we're not going to trade him. But when you look at the transcript, he said we like Lance on the team for now. How do you interpret that?
Well, let's say you did a live stream like later today with Jesse, and Jesse's like, hey, I see that you have Larry on your channel. And you said, I have Larry on my channel for now.
For now. Ooh, that wouldn't sound good.
I'd be like, maybe I'm going to have Monday afternoons free.
I like Larry on my channel for now. Yeah, he's good until I replace him.
I like Larry on my channel for now. If you had said, I like Larry, then it's like, hey, you know what? Then it sounds like we're,
That's a good point.
So it's a totally different deal. I just don't I think John Lynch is a smart guy who doesn't say any words by accident. And we like Trey on our team right now. Sounds like they're getting, I'll stand by what I said at the end of the season. I think at the end of the year, it sounded very much like they were going to trade Trey Lance on draft day. And I have seen nothing from their behavior or their statements that says otherwise. And I'm looking for things.
I have an alternate interpretation.
Okay.
It's possible that the reason he said right now is that he doesn't have much trade value, Trey Lance. And trading him would be for maybe a third-round pick. I have no idea. Because he hasn't played in 3 years. And if that's the case, then is it worth it? You already have 3 third-round picks. Maybe the idea is keep him one more year just in case because Brock's coming off a serious injury. And if Brock is everything the Niners think he is, then trade next year.
Yeah, I mean, and that makes the most cap sense, right? I mean, if you look at the cap, that makes the most sense. But
they'd have to create a little cap space to trade him now. Is that correct?
Well, I think isn't there a cap hit of some kind of significance?
Yeah,
if they
because of the signing bonus would accelerate. That's the term. Yes,
right. So I think it would be more advantageous not to trade Trey. But I just think that they're in. Then he went on to say, "Hey, Kyle and I always joke that we'd trade each other if we got a good deal." So I think what they're just going to do is they know. At least in my belief, I believe Trey Lance is probably as good as most of the quarterbacks in this draft. And I think there's probably other NFL people that probably feel the same way. And so those quarterbacks, I think, are going to get off the board in the top 10. And then I think the 49ers are going to open up, the phone lines will be there if anybody wants to trade for Trey Lance. And I think they are willing to trade him between, let's say, the 10th pick and the 30th pick. Or 10th pick and the 40th pick, and maybe a player.
Yeah, they won't say no to that.
And then
they would not say no.
Once they get to 40 or so, maybe they'll say, you know what, or once a certain guy's off the board that they would like. But, the thing about it, Grant, they're going and looking at NFL quarterbacks, guys like Tanner McKee and Clayton Tune and the kid from Utah State. They're looking at quarterbacks. Is that to be a fourth quarterback, or is Darnold going to be the 2? And this is to be the third quarterback.
I mean, they talked about Darnold today like he's a 2, right? They talked to John was just so effusive in his love for Sam Darnold. He had a breakthrough performance last year. It was like, wow.
Right. Maybe they feel like he's a future starter. They've caught lightning in a bottle. They've got him at a great deal. I mean, you got to remember this, too. You got to do something outside of money to attract Sam Darnold. He's been in some bad situations. But he could have gone somewhere else for a better deal if his deal here is to be the third quarterback.
Right.
So maybe he's not the third quarterback. Maybe he's more like the second quarterback, and they're going to trade Trey on draft day for picks. Who knows? Or
I just want to say I'm skeptical that a team would offer the 49ers a first-round pick this year for Lance. I'm with you that if they get that offer, from how John Lynch was talking today, I think they'd accept it. I just don't think they'll get it. So that's why if I had to bet, I think they're going to hold him one more year, essentially waste another year of his youth. And then, if they need him, play him. They might need him. But otherwise, if Brock bounces back, plays well, keeps the job, I think they'll trade him next year. But it does seem like this might be his last year if he's even on the team. With the team.
Here's the one thing that we don't know. How wed are they to Brock Purdy? And it's if let's just say Kyle Shanahan thinks, privately, man, Brock Purdy's the absolute perfect quarterback for my offense. Then it's just a matter of how does he come out of this surgery and what are you going to do with Trey?
Well, what did Lynch say at the end? I mean, we said, we really think this is a guy. Like, how do you interpret a guy? Like, not just, to me, I look at that as like a franchise guy. We think he's a guy, like a special guy.
He said that about
Purdy.
Trey.
About Purdy at the end. Because the last question was from Matt Mayoko, and he said, please, if you don't mind, like, it's only been 8 games. Like, why do you, we've seen a lot of young quarterbacks sort of get figured out by the league and come back down to earth. Why are you so sure with Brock? And like Lynch didn't flinch. He was like, oh, it's just the way he played. I mean, it's not just that he can do this, run the system, but he can do so much outside of structure. And he's so much a better athlete than we thought. And we really think he's a guy, like meaning like someone worth investing time and money into. I'm thinking. So that's what they think of Brock. They could be wrong. I think they thought this about Jimmy Garoppolo at one point, but that's what they think of Brock right now, which means if he's the guy and Darnold's a high level 2, then yeah, Lance is the odd man out. And now it's in like Operation rehabilitate his trade value if possible. And I couldn't imagine it could get any worse lower than it is now. All they have to do is give him some good practice reports, have me and you talk him up, and have a good preseason, and all of a sudden his value goes up.
Well, I mean, where would you put Trey Lance in this draft as far as quarterbacks?
Yeah. Well, let's be brutally honest here. I mean, he hasn't played in 3 years.
Personally,
you couldn't put him in the top 4, to me.
I'm not convinced on any of these guys.
He'd be 5. He'd be 5. You'd put him right ahead of Hendon Hooker, who's 25 years old. But you couldn't put him ahead of any of these young top 4 quarterbacks, even Will Levis, because they played football last year and the year before that, and they didn't break their ankle.
That's true, but also they all have their weaknesses. They all have their downsides. I mean, Stroud.
So does Trey.
Yeah, Trey has his weaknesses. I like Trey better as a prospect than all of these guys, except for Richardson and maybe Stroud. Bryce Young's tiny. Will Levis, I watched Kentucky. He was not good. Hendon Hooker had phenomenal receivers, and he's older, and he's now coming off a major injury. And then the other thing is, I
just feel like real quick, if you plop Trey Lance somehow, if he got to be in this draft, I don't think he's getting picked ahead of those 4.
No, I don't. I think for sure he's going in the 20s. I think if you're a team, like if I'm Tennessee,
tough one. I don't know.
Tennessee and I'm Rand Carthon, I think what I'm doing is I'm trading back, getting more draft capital into the teens, and then trading that pick for Trey.
It could happen. He's such an enigma because he really has 1 year of playing experience at North Dakota State, and it was 2019. I mean, how do you evaluate him in 2023? And I think where the Niners are coming from is like, I don't even want to try anymore. It's like, look, Brock Purdy's given them most of what they hoped Trey Lance would give them. So why even bother with the Trey Lance project? Yeah, Trey Lance could end up being better than Brock, but Brock's given them like 85% of what they were hoping to get with Trey. So why don't they just count their blessings and move on? I think that's what they're thinking.
I think you're right. And then don't forget what John's last comments were at the combine. Trey's just got to play, and that's the challenge because we got a team that's ready to win right now. And the implication was obvious. The implication was Trey's not ready to play right now. We're ready to win right now. Our timeline doesn't mesh with his. We're trading Trey. But everybody denied that at the time. Then now follow that up with what he said today in Arizona. You're there. You saw the look on his face, so you could probably speak to it better than I could. But to me, it sounds very much like we're trading Trey. We don't want to get ripped off. We're not going to take anything in a trade. But absolutely, after the 10th pick and before the 40th pick, if you come and call us.
For sure. He's open. He's open for business. And if we don't get that, we could do this one more year and maybe trade him next year. Because maybe next year's draft is stronger. Who knows? So, yeah, I'm with you on that. This was not an encouraging day. If you were a Trey Lance fan and you were hoping that the Niners secretly believed in him and are going to put him right back in the starting spot, didn't sound that way today. Now, John isn't necessarily the final word in this organization. Kyle is. So we'll see what he says tomorrow. We'll see if he strikes a different tone or has a totally different message. I'm guessing he won't. But We'll see. He sometimes likes to surprise people.